I'm hoping we were 18 total, but I would guess that we got some. I just haven't. I've been in meetings all day, but I haven't had a chance to look to see where we. Esther needs to sign that in the middle. Going left, huh? There it is.
So listen, what is the like a tornado? So where did how do we evacuate? What's the like if you have to?
A tornado is in the. Why are we in a tornado? Warning?
At Hawkeye they just didn't alert us. That's a warning.
If it's a tornado, we're gonna go into the middle hallway. Not in the middle. That's where we're supposed to stand in the middle, away from the doors. So
Are we still under warning?
I'm gonna look it up. Oh my gosh, where is Maya? With your mom?
So do you think we should make it like in case of a tornado, make it to the like when or we just say in the event of inclement weather or something, not
Are we ready? I'm sorry, I'm walking around making checks. Uh-oh, here you need.
We are. We're in a watch, not a warning.
okay.
Yes,
So we're okay, probably. A
for
tornado
now.
watch
Keep
is
an eye on. You want a pen?
No, I got one.
I don't have the t-shirt thing.
As many times as that happens, I know the difference between the watch.
I know.
Watch is bad.
Dallas County's under a severe thunderstorm warning right now, but that's way down in Des Moines. So,
A warning.
warning.
That's a warning. Take cover. You bet.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Watch just means conditions are.
Everybody ready down there? Everybody ready? Is that it? You didn't hand me a pen. I picked my pen out.
There was one. Did somebody throw it in my purse? Nope. It's good.
Lyle took it. All right, is everybody ready?
And you know that this is a new one, right?
I do. Who wants to read the mission statement tonight? Thank you, Rhonda. All right, here we go. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the regular board meeting of the Waterloo Community Schools Board of Directors and ask that you join me in a moment of silence. Thank you, and will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and now Rhonda McCrina will read our mission statement.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continuing education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to a community.
Thank you, Rhonda. The first item on our agenda this evening is then a new partnership signing. This is a recognition with Kingsley Elementary, and this is just for information only, but I would welcome Tara Thomas to the front, as well as we'll have some more discussion with our Jana and our Kingsley principal and our new partner.
Thank you. So we're always excited to add another partner in education to the list, and Kingsley, like so many of our schools, already has quite a few partners, so this will just be one more way to enhance the opportunities for students. Sidecar Coffee, Manor Care, Vanderloo Chiropractic, Westminster Presbyterian, U of I Community Credit Union, now Green State, Cedar Valley Vein Clinic, KWWL, and Hy-Vee on Amesboro. And now we'd like to welcome Oak Ridge Realtors to the list. So tell us a little bit about how this will give you guys both opportunities for students.
Hi, I'm Rachel Nosbush. I'm the lead teacher at Kingsley, and I would like to introduce Bryn Mangrich. She is our Oak Ridge Realty representative. And we're just super excited to partner with Oak Ridge. Some of the things that they've done in the past is uniform and school supply drives, adopt families, and they have, Bryn says they have 45 agents who are just ready to partner with our students and just make some magic happen. And I think the best thing was what Bryn said, is she said, we're up for anything. So whatever we can think of, and we have students ready to meet and our Partners in Ed committee. So we're gonna challenge them, and we're gonna challenge Oak Ridge to see what amazing things we can come together and do.
Wonderful.
Excellent, so thank you.
We have a certificate to present, and then I'll get a photo in the back, if that works. Okay.
And you're welcome to say a few words if you want, and if you don't, you don't have to, but just to put you on the spot.
That's all right. So we had just visited, just basically like what she had said.
Can you just step in front of the mic? There you go,
We are
perfect.
game for everything. So we're ready to go, and we've been partners in it with other schools as well. So just excited to start now with Kingsley. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you can just stand here, it's fine.
Since I need Tara the next time, I'm not going to make her walk to the back. Excellent. Thank you. Then Exhibit B on our agenda this evening is a donation from the German American National Congress, the Waterloo Cedar Falls chapter. And once again, I will welcome Tara to the microphone to tell us a little bit more. I am going to go ahead and put this motion on the table, Tara. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education accepts and acknowledges the donation of $10,000 from the German American National Congress, the Waterloo Cedar Falls chapter, as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Jesse and Sue. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tara Thomas.
Well, this is really exciting. Earlier this year, I received a phone call from Kirsten Schultz, and she said, we have a unique situation where this German American National Congress, the Cedar Valley chapter specifically, has $10,000 that it would like to donate to two areas of our students, one being the East and West German foreign language programs and the Waterloo Career Center's advanced manufacturing pathway. So we are so excited that this opportunity has taken shape, and not only has this now been brought forth tonight, but the media coverage has been incredible, so much so that I had to remind Kirsten that she's being hounded by a radio personality in Waverly to do an interview. I've done an interview. It's also been covered by local print and television. So people are excited about an opportunity for our students to benefit from this money. So I will invite Kirsten Schultz to come up and tell us why you chose Waterloo Schools and these particular programs.
Well, I'm a little nervous, but that's all right. My husband over here is Facebooking this for some family members to watch this.
It's
too,
okay.
So that you know that. I really didn't know how to talk to you about this tonight because it's kind of dry information, because I wanted to give you a background of the national organization and then how that all worked into the local group here. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is about the national organization, and it is the German American National Congress, Deutsch-Amerikanische Nationalkongress. The acronym in German will be the DANK, which is Dank, not Dank, it's Dank. And Dank in German means thanks. Dankeschön, danke vielmals. So it's easy to remember. Dank, the national organization, was established over 60 years ago in Chicago. Their mission was to unite Americans of German descent while preserving their heritage on a local and national level. The organization is very active across the country. In fact, a new chapter is starting in the Waverly area called the Eastern Iowa Wartburg chapter of Dank. Dank actively promotes and supports German language education in public and private schools. They have a bi-monthly publication of English and German with many interesting topics. Their website contains important links to sources and resources regarding all things German. One of their major accomplishments was partnering with two large German American organizations to establish October 6th as National German American Day. President Ronald Reagan, along with the 100th Congress, signed this resolution on August 18th, 1987. The day commemorates over 300 years of German immigration and culture in the United States. So how did the Waterloo Cedar Falls Chapter Dunk Group get started? Well, first off, one needs to recognize that almost 50% of Iowans can claim partial, if not 100% German ancestry. Immigration was strong after 1848 and up until World War I. And so there was still quite a local connection to family with German American history. After World War II, in the early 1950s and 1960s, a number of new German immigrants and people of German American descent were in this area. They came for employment, or they were sponsored by an employer or a family member, or they were married to an American. That is how they got here. They came from all walks of life, including people at the university in Cedar Falls. John Deere brought a lot of people over. There were farmers and various other occupations, including machinists, plumbers, butchers, bakers, domestic help, maids, cooks, and of course the housewife. It didn't take long for them to connect socially, and as their families grew, it was increasingly important to teach their children about their heritage and German traditions. Several social clubs were formed to give community to their efforts. There was also a growing interest in switching things up a bit. And in addition to preserving their heritage, interest developed in building and promoting a more positive view on Germany, and also becoming involved at a higher level regarding German American interests. So in 1967, some individuals from these local social clubs branched out and joined the National Dunk Organization. They received a charter, and the Waterloo Cedar Falls chapter was formed. Volunteers were invited to local schools to talk about German things and language. The group earned money through various programs and social events held for the general public. They volunteered their time and labor and donations to further their German heritage and presence in the area. Dunk was active in the area for many years, but gradually became inactive. So now what does all this have to do with me and my relationship to this group? Well, my mother was Margaret Drolly. She was a German immigrant. She immigrated to Waterloo with her new American husband, Virgil Drolly, at the end of 1953. She was fluent in English, and 9 years later, and 5 children later, she became an American citizen. My siblings and I attended Hawthorne Elementary in Waterloo, and we moved to Cedar Falls and completed our education there. Virgil and Margaret, along with others in the area, were in the founding circle of the local Dunk chapter, and my father was the treasurer for many, many years. And after he could not do this anymore and the group stopped functioning, I stepped in. And I connected with the national organization about the disposal of the funds that they had, and it was very important for me that the money stayed here at the local level, especially in the Waterloo area. I felt that the best would be giving the funds back to the community where those German Americans built their lives and raised their families. A good education was dear to their hearts, particularly the teaching of the German language and culture, and also the all-important programs regarding vocational education and training. It gives me great pleasure, and the organization, the national organization, great pleasure to know that the Dunk funds were accepted by the Waterloo School Board and will be used to build up another generation of Iowa students. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Does anybody on the board have any questions or anything they'd like to ask Kirsten? Well, she's, you better hold up just a second. Sometimes we have questions.
I'd be glad to.
What was the occupation of your parents?
My parents?
Yes.
My mother was a housewife at first here, and after we moved to Cedar Falls, she got involved in the fabric business, and she had Hancock Fabrics on University Avenue for about 30 years.
Can you step up
Kirsten,
to the
can you
microphone?
step
Oh,
up?
I'm sorry.
You're okay. You're
I'm
fine.
sorry. Yeah.
So my mother when we moved to Cedar Falls, my mother started working after her youngest was enrolled in school, started working in the fabric stores. And in the end, she wound up having a career with Hancock Fabrics for almost 30 years on University Avenue. So, and my father was a manager at Chamberlain's at the time. That's that connection. So, yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of the entire board, and we'll vote on this in just a minute, but
Yes.
that you would have the foresight and I promise you that we will take these funds and we will use them wisely, and we are very grateful and thankful for the gift. So
Yeah, I appreciate
we really
that.
appreciate that, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that you wanted to keep it here at home and here in Waterloo. That's awesome.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
So, did your mom speak German to you, speak Deutsch to you all in the home?
Actually, yes, she did. My second sister and I both were bilingual. You know, we spoke German. That was our first language, basically, German. Yeah. And then we went to school. It was English. Of course, we had English and German. And as she got more children in her family, it got harder to keep that going with the German language. Yes. And I did study German at Cedar Falls, and then I kind of forgot about it for a while, and then picked it up again at UNI. So.
And do we have a German teacher here today? Two?
I think I heard some mumblings back there earlier. So, yeah.
And
I
I
went back
would
there.
encourage you to, with the history that you have, it's really cool. And giving these funds to our German program, I mean, I think the students would love to hear
To
your
hear about
story
that,
and
yeah.
hear from you
In German.
authentically.
In German, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kind of help them out.
Yeah.
Let's freak them out. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So it just, because that's just such a wonderful thing to give back and to keep the tradition going. And I have a freshman great nephew that's in a German class, and it was so exciting to hear that he was going to learn
Here in
German.
town?
Yeah,
Yes.
at West.
Well, very good. Very good. Yeah. So that's
And
great.
I just like to share. I lived in Auerbach, Germany, for over
Oh.
3 years, and I tried very hard to learn German, but everybody in my neighborhood spoke English, and
that
so
works
whenever
that
I
way,
would,
isn't that funny?
right,
Yes, that works that
whenever
way.
I would try to sprechen Sie Deutsch, they would say sprechen Sie English. No. So yeah,
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, that does make it difficult when you travel overseas and you want to practice your German,
Yeah.
and they want to practice their English on you. Yes, yeah.
No,
Yes, that's
it's
right.
really something said there, because you don't appreciate it till you travel there. But traveling Europe, most places I've been, they know English. We're not forced to really learn, and be able to take those opportunities as other people learn our language. So when we have kids that are willing to go out and learn the languages and be able to try to practice them, I think it's really great. So
Yes, and it's so important to encourage them to travel, just even around this country and to travel overseas before they get tied down,
yeah,
Yeah.
and have the opportunity
For sure.
to explore and just be and see how the world really is.
it's pretty amazing. I've been to six different countries in Europe. I never had a problem getting around because I'm kind of spoiled to that.
Yeah. With the English, yeah, you can get around pretty good with English for sure.
But
I'll
more-
tell you, I learned the hard way, but the fun way, that when you order a Jaeger Schnitzel, to not do this does not mean one, it means two.
I didn't know that. That's
So I just-
interesting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Two, not
Learn something new
This
every
is
day.
one. I ain't
Where did
sweat
you
that.
say you were? Auerbach, you said?
Auerbach, yeah.
Auerbach.
Yeah.
So one means two,
This
huh?
is one. This is two.
Oh, I
They
see.
always
The
count
thumb is
the
the one,
thumb
and
as
I
one.
never
Yeah.
knew that. I didn't experience that.
Granddad counted that way.
They'll give you two big.
Give you two big ones. Well, you take one to go and have it for lunch or the next day. That works too. That's very good. So, well, I sure
But-
enjoyed this. I was nervous as heck to do this.
About how
Oh,
many?
don't be nervous.
I think the Waterloo community really understands.
Absolutely.
They understand the whole background because of the
But
background
how many
here.
students do we have taking German? Do we?
I don't have an official number.
We're still doing counts for the
Right.
Same has 100-ish. I have probably another 50 at West.
Well, we can probably get a
Okay,
count.
I
at
was just
some
curious.
point.
So about 150.
Are there two German teachers or three?
There's 3 of us technically, but 2 of us at West.
Okay, because I had gone online and I was trying to figure it out, and I could only figure out that there were 2 teachers. At first I thought the one from East was running back and forth, and I don't know if that's true or not.
She
Oh,
was.
she was. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
So good. But not anymore. Oh, well,
so
good.
3.
Very good.
3.
Very good. Very nice. Very nice.
1.5, right?
Yes.
But it's
Right.
important because a lot of organizations that are more global, they transfer personnel more and more that live in different countries, and obviously because Germany's a major manufacturing companies, any manufacturers around here, a lot of people have.
Yes,
You
and it's a
know,
very
yeah.
important business
Live.
language.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I had a coworker, former coworker. She had taken German in high school. Then she had an expat to Germany, and it was kind of neat for her after taking it and then getting to go
Yes.
live in the culture with it. And even then, it's like
It makes it real then.
yes, and even then it's interesting because you go to different parts of the country and it not all the same. You learn certain areas. You go to the southern part versus the northern part, and
The different
Vernaculars are-
language. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's very
For sure.
true. Everybody speaks high German, but when you get into the smaller areas, you start getting the local
Slang.
lingo,
Yeah.
and some places are very difficult to understand.
yeah, someone like, oh, that's Bavarian. You'll hear them call it out different different terms and stuff.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, you still have a lot of German language. Well, not as much anymore, but in the counties around here, Grundy
Yeah.
Center and Butler and Brainburn and all of
For
that.
sure.
You know, so there's still a lot of that going on. Benton, very neat, very neat.
Well, thank you for
Thank
your
you.
You
time.
bet.
We sure
No
appreciate it,
problem.
and for
I
the
appreciate it.
donation.
I'm glad to do it. So.
Excellent. Thank
Yep.
you very much. Well, with that, I suppose we ought to vote on this. So all those in favor of accepting the very generous donation from the German American National Congress, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks again. All right. The next item on our agenda then is information from individuals and delegations. And I would ask if there's anyone here this evening who wishes to address the board. And if so, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, then we will move on to our consent agenda, which this evening consists of 4 items. The minutes of the August 26th, 2019 regular board meeting, which is item C. Personnel appointments and adjustments, item D. And I would note for the board that there's a new exhibit at your board table. And that's item D. And then bills due and payable and bills paid between board meetings, which is item E. And then lastly, the West High School government class travel to Washington DC, which is item F. Can I get a motion to put those items on the table, please? Thank you, Astor, and a second.
Second.
Thanks, you two over there, Jesse. And are there any items that board members wish to have removed?
Item D, Delta, and F, Foxtrot.
Item D, Delta, and item F. All right. Anything else? All right, then all those in favor of approving the consent agenda items C and E, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. That takes us to item D on page 5.
I move the Board of Education approve the personnel items as listed.
Thanks, Lyle, in a second.
Second.
Thanks, India. And discussion.
Okay, are we stable enough from a student standpoint to have all the teachers in place? Do we expect any additional changes from here?
Sure. No. No, we have we are stable. We don't expect any additional changes. And we're talking about elementary. Just to be clear, as far as sometimes just for the public's, at times there are, especially during this time of the year, the situations where we need to balance out numbers across the district, and so we have to move some teachers around. Unfortunately, even after they started school, I think we were able to do that pretty effectively this year. We've been able to. I've sent emails to the teachers and checked in with them, but I haven't seen them yet, and so I plan on seeing them this week, just to check in with them face to face. But they are doing well, and yeah, we're stable right now. And for those buildings that weren't able to get some additional support, we're working with them this week to get that support.
Okay.
As a second,
It seems early in relatively early in the year, but any changes made after this time become pretty disruptive. So.
Absolutely, and I didn't speak about the secondary changes. As if you gander on our website, we do have a couple of positions open. You'll see in our within your document there are some moves that are happening that we're trying to find people for and find long-term subs for. And so we're working with our buildings and our principals on how to move that forward and obviously in the best interest for kids.
Lyle, I just want to add to that. I agree that making those changes later in the year, and I think we've really gotten better at that.
I think so,
because
too.
I will say one of my own children was definitely my oldest, 5-6 years ago, was moved. It was a month into school, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure, when that class was separated. And so to be 2 weeks in and to be stable, I think is great. It's never easy to have a child or a teacher move. I get that, but I'm happy that we're working on that.
Well, and I would just briefly say just kudos to our team, Jane and Stephanie, or Dr. Lindemann and Dr. Mohorn. You know, we sit down and talk about these changes ad nauseum at times, and you know, there's some sleep at nights as far as whether or not we're making the right decision. I think we have so far, and we have some of those. We have a kind of internal deadline of what we're looking at to make sure that we're making those changes soon enough to make sure we're not wholly disrupting classes, but waiting enough time to make sure we get some of those numbers in so we can make the best decision possible. And so again, kudos to the team and for again making sure that we're kind of walking step by step and making those deadlines and making the situations as good as we can for kids.
Great.
My other question is on, there's 4 resignations for the special needs para and 5 hires. Is this unusual?
No, unfortunately, we see a lot of turnover for our paras, especially our special education paras, just in general our paras, but more so for our special education paras because that's where we have the most. One of the changes, or 2 of the changes that we're looking towards this year is we sent out a survey last year to talk to them about, you know, what would professional development look like? What can we do differently? Because as you know from research, money, it's helpful, so we're not necessarily looking at that. That's the second thing. I'll get to that in a minute. But the first thing is just I want to feel more valued in my classroom. I want to feel like I know what I'm doing. So we're changing our professional development to really walk hand in hand with our evaluation procedures. And so we're working with, for example, just coming up on September 13th, this Friday, we're going to do really good training around behavior and what's supposed to be those expectations in the classroom, especially in the beginning of the year. So our parents feel more prepared, walking into those situations, working with students, especially as we get to the later months. And again, you know, those times where our kiddos leave us and sometimes the behavior spikes because there's that inconsistency that comes with that. And so that's a change that was made to make sure that we can move forward in a good way. And I think parents really appreciate that because we're really trying to treat people like professionals and give them that choice. They asked for it, so we're coming forward and bringing that effort. And then some of the other things that have come across just with talking with principals, talking with paras a lot, not only in the strategic planning conversation, but you know, how can we provide more pay? And as you know, we're coming up with negotiations, and so that will be a part of that conversation as well.
Okay, thank you.
And just Kingsley, wondering, I saw the ELL, there was a resignation at West and then a leave of absence. So are we doing okay with ELL teachers at West?
We are. We were able to, that resignation we were able to fulfill or
Great.
replace with another teacher, and so we feel really good about that. We do have another leave of absence, and we're looking at, I know that Amy White, I couldn't remember her last name. I was about to say Amy Schmidt, but she's the principal at Hoover. Amy White was looking at allocations across the district and having that conversation. She has to have that conversation with Stephanie and so forth. And so right now I think we're pretty good.
Perfect. Thank you.
And these leave of absence terminations, they just basically timed out.
Correct. Yeah, those leave of absence you see there are timed out. So some of those names are definitely sticking with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's awesome. All right, anything further? All right, then all those in favor of approving the personnel appointments and adjustments as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye, motion carried. The next item then is item F, which is the West High School government class travel to Washington, D.C.
I move the Board of Education approve travel for West High students and Mr. Yuska to Washington, D.C., February 16th to the 21st, 2020.
Second? Second. Thank you, Sue. Mr. Yuska, I think it's your turn. Would you please approach the microphone? Because I'm guessing people have some questions for you.
Well, speaking of traveling, here I am again. Yeah, like Lyle said, and you have the information there, we're proposing the trip 16th through the 21st. Somebody just asked me today, why you always go in February? I said, because the group that I work with, Close Up, the nonprofit group, it's the cheapest time. And sometimes it's President's Week, sometimes it's not. And usually, not last year, the weather is pretty decent. So anyway, we've had 70-degree weather. And last year, of course, everybody became chickens in Washington, D.C. and closed down until Anna McNally says, Mr. Yuska, we're from Iowa, we can suck it up and go out. And I says, okay, let's go. Put on your best shoes. We're going trudging through the snow. And we did. And so anyway, but the trip, you have the schedule. This is a tentative schedule, like I said, that Close Up sets up to kind of begin the year, but that's tentative. It can change in a moment's notice, like anything in Washington can change in 15 minutes notice. The trip is 16th through the 21st, and since Tony Dell retired at East, I have reached out to Ryan Paulson, who picked up all his government classes, and have shared the information with him, and he is talking to East students, and dependent upon approval tonight, I will have an organizational meeting, and they and the parents are invited, just as the West High students are too. And we haven't gotten back together, but I gave him all the things at the beginning of the year, the information and close-up information and things like that. So, Columbus is going. It's another new teacher from Columbus, so I guess I'm breaking in another teacher. Jefferson will probably go, and in the information, we usually have other schools from Iowa that are going, and sometimes we're all kind of lumped together. And I am working with Close Up that we do not fly United ever again. After last year, wasn't anything to do with the snow. We were held hostage in the Cedar Rapids Airport by a computer that was destined to be serviced, and they decided not to do it. And so we didn't get out of Cedar Rapids in time. Then we did get caught in Chicago. So we flew Delta a couple years ago, and I have strongly urged Close Up that we fly Delta so we can make things in a timely manner this year. And so anyway, I've still working with that, but my Close-Up rep just got married this weekend, so I won't be talking to her for a couple weeks yet, so she has a little time off. So anyway, schedule's there. What questions do you have?
What was your highlight of last year?
Highlight of last year? Making it the first day there, even though it took us all day to get there. We weren't supposed to be there by 12 or 1. And I was just relieved we didn't have to come home and come back to Waterloo, because I don't know what to do, you know. We rebooked, I think, 3-4 times. One other year I rebooked 12 times, so that didn't top that. But once we finally got there and we got our feet on the ground, we were rolling. You know, it was a mad dash to the end of the week and things. Well, if it was 2 years ago, I'd have to say Mr. Williams' connections to tour the Pentagon was our highlight. But I don't know. It's hard to pick a highlight because everything is new and different. And, you know, people ask me every year, are you tired of doing this trip after 20 years? And I said, no, because there's always something new for me. And the aha moments for the kids, there's always something different. And I've had some kids say, could I go again? I said, yeah, it'll be a different trip. You know, similar things, but different trip. Probably the Capitol tour. You know, the Capitol tour is always good because Senator Grassley's office gives us a very specific and special tour. They show us things you don't get on the normal Capitol tours because I request them to do that. So, you know, they show us like the cornerstones and things like that, and, you know, which is backed by the senator's toilets, but oh well. So,
Well, I think it's great that you continue to put all the personal time and effort it takes to pull this all together and lead this program.
It's a labor of love,
Thank
Lyle.
you.
Like I've told many people and all of you before. Someone did this for me when I was 16 years old, and it was a life-changing week in my life. And so, like, you know, it's time to pay back when you're a social studies government type teacher to get kids interested along with things in classes and stuff. And as I've said, you know, Columbus, it's benefited all of us. I have kids that work at the Department of Ag. I have kids that come back and want to run for elected office. Columbus has somebody that is on the staff of Nancy Pelosi right now as we speak. You know, so, and Columbus has actually had somebody else too. Works for the Department of Ag. I'm trying to think who it is. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now. But those connections, like Mr. Williams' connection of the former student from East and West who works at the Pentagon, and those people at the Department of Ag are valuable, and the person who works for Nancy Pelosi's, because we can call them and say, hey, what can you do? And the one student from Columbus got us on the actual floor of the House, so that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
And we were in the lounge where only House members are allowed, and there's a big sign on the wall, absolutely no one is allowed in here except House members. And of course the kids all were standing in front of that taking pictures. That was pretty fun. So, you know, we do a lot of things off the beaten path too. I've been doing it enough so that I take them on the tours, and they get the USCA tour behind the scenes off the beaten path, and they get all the trivia, and usually they are telling some of the tour people some of the secrets, because I usually have them doing that before. Like, for instance, wherever you stand on the sidewalk around the Korean Memorial, the soldiers, at least one of the soldiers has their eyes directly on you wherever you stand on the sidewalk. And a couple of the tour people didn't even know that. They go, you guys must be from Waterloo. That one dude always teaches you that. So the close-up people are even. Close-up asked me if I could put together a list of all the kids and all the staffers that I've worked with Close-up, because most all of them have retired and gone on. And I've been kind of chipping away at that, and I haven't put a number on it yet. So, but it's a few. So
And what's the age or grade that's going?
I rarely take ninth graders because I'm not sure they're ready for it, but I have, if I'm sure they're pretty politically astute. But I think usually sophomore, junior, seniors appreciate the experience a little better, because I was just out of sophomore when I did it, and I think I appreciated it a lot more than I would have. And I've actually, when I tagged along one time when I was at North Tama schools, and they did it for middle schools, and they like it, but yeah, it's a little better when you're in high school. I think a little more realistic and a little more influencing on their lives. So,
Well,
68 middle schoolers,
Oh,
and I was the bad cop the whole time. I think I slept 2 hours the whole week. So, and we fly. We don't take buses. They took a bus, and that was horrendous for me. So anyway, anyway, we really milk the trip as much as we can. We try to leave early Sunday morning, and the late flight back on Friday night, so we can have those extra days and things like that. So there's a lot. Some of the things are similar to last year's, but there's a few different things on there. And then sometimes I take kids off program, especially Thursday, if there's something they really want to do. One year we looked up one of the students' uncles whose ashes were interned at the Smithsonian at the special section of the Arlington, Arlington, where ashes are deposited, special buildings over there. And I had never been to that part, so that was actually very good for me too. So, and we took pictures there. She had never been there to visit since his death, and so we made special trips. We do things like that. I take kids to the Georgetown Medical Center when they are sick in the middle of the night. I've had to do that, Uber them over there and back, and you know, it's like going on a big camping trip.
No, just as usual, it looks like you have a full schedule. If we can make that happen again.
I would love to have that. I'll make time for. Is he still at the Pentagon?
He is.
Okay.
He is. So
I think I have his phone number, but we need to get in touch.
Okay.
Because I'll tell you what, that was the highlight of the year. Because he took us places we couldn't go. He took us in the press room. He showed us Saddam Hussein's gold rifle. Not everybody gets to see that. And
I didn't see it when I went.
He took us in the. He took us in the. He took us to the exact spot, ground zero, where the plane hit Pentagon, near the chapel, and not everybody gets to go back in that. He showed us areas where on one side of the hallway people lived, and the other side people did not live, and showed us all the differences and things. So that was. We want to do that tour.
Okay.
So.
I'll get in touch with him. I just actually talked to him the other day.
He's a busy guy.
He is.
I felt bad every time I called him.
Yeah, he is. So he's actually in Arizona right now.
Okay, but he's still back in the Pentagon.
Yes, he's
I would
still
like
there,
to do that, Mr. Williams.
Okay.
So let's be in touch with one another, emails and make that happen.
We'll do. We'll do.
I'll make it happen on Thursday or Friday morning, whatever time
Okay.
we have there.
Okay.
Special for that.
I just want to say thank you again. You know, I really love this program, and I was looking at Tuesday. There's a mock Congress where students get to see, debate, amend, and vote on the same issues elected representatives are currently considering. So our students will get to see up close and personal how government works, and hopefully for those who are will be 18 by the time the election rolls around, you know, they'll really become engaged, civically engaged. So I just want to thank you again.
Kids, when they come home from this trip, like I said, they are sky high about everything, you
Get
know,
fired
because it
up.
all kind of fits into place. And, you know, and they, like I do have people who have run for elective office, nobody president, but like lesser offices, like city councils and things. At Traer, when I was there, they did that. Soil commissioner, which is an elected office, but none the same. They're usually charged up. And I'm still waiting. We had a foreign exchange student go with us about 10 years ago from West. Bright young man, and he said he was going to come back to the United States someday and run for senator. I said, really? And he says, yes. He says, I'm going to become a citizen, run for senator, and everything. I says, okay.
One quick
So-
question. What will the students need again to go? Do they need to sell candy bars? I mean, what are the expectations?
Well, the cost went up a wee bit. It's first time in I think 9 years it went up. I think because of the plane costs and probably because I'm negotiating flying with Delta instead of United. So it's gone up a little bit. Some of them fundraise on their own. Some of them sign up when they're freshmen and sophomores, and I tell them start budgeting for that, and so their parents have done that and things like that. But as far as selling things, I don't know how many candy bars and things can we sell, you know? So
Close Up also has a payment program
Mhm.
that they start once you enroll, that you can divvy out how you want to take care of it until the very last. You do have to make that final payment, but they do have options for parents.
and there are different things Close Up helps out as far as financial need.
Yes.
But that's through me, and I take care of that and help with Close Up. They reach out, and it's an unlimited basis per school, but I have tapped into that several times. They're very helpful. The whole idea was that Alan J. Allender left, I don't know how much money, back in 1970. He's the guy who started the school breakfast programs. He appropriated money for that and said, I want kids to come to Washington, D.C. to learn about government, see the sites. And he said, and yes, have fun. And so he left his estate to that, and somehow Close Up and the United States government has not squandered it and lost it. And they've kept it going for all these years since they started back in 1970. So
They didn't archive that in the.
well, yeah,
In a
you'd
crate
think they
somewhere
would have
in the
lost it
National
somewhere
Archives.
and blown it somewhere, but somehow they've kept their paws on it and kept it alive. And I forget, hundreds of thousands of students through the years. Obviously, I think they average about 200 or 300,000 students a year go. So it's getting to be enormous numbers.
So
What is the estimated cost per student?
It's not an estimated. I can give you the exact cost, Mr. Williams. It'll be 1,802. It was
about
1776
1,800.
last year. That was
Yeah.
such a nice number. But it's 1802.
all right.
And is there a deadline?
Well, we have a deadline for a $400 deposit, and that's non-refundable. So I always tell the kids and parents, don't commit unless you're absolutely sure. Maybe it's something you want to wait and do next year. Happen a lot of times. And they'll come to my informational meeting, and then they'll say it'll be next year. I said that's okay. So I said 10 to 15 students, but I don't know. It could be more. I've had a lot of people sign up this year that are interested. You know, so
What's the date for that deposit?
October
end of-
17th.
Yeah. Okay.
October 17th, and then the balance is due January 2nd.
January. Yeah, it's a
And
month.
that means before January
Yeah.
2nd. So
Get feisty. About
And when is the day for the organizational meeting?
I haven't set that up. That
Okay.
has to be. I had to wait until after this, and I'm going to try and squeeze it in around all the activities at West. There's no perfect night for it, but I was told that I was not supposed to do that until the school board approves it.
Do you have to be in government?
I didn't tell you that.
You have to be what?
Do you have to be in government?
In government? No,
You can just
Anyone.
no.
anyone can go.
East or West, 10th grade through. You don't even have to be my student. You know, I'll go with, somebody comes in and talks to me and says, I'd really like to go, and I chat with them a little bit. And explain, you know, we're a group and we're on group deadlines. You would have to be able to keep up with us and everything. You know, if I'm taking you halfway across the country, you have to be able to be a little bit dependable. You know?
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
you know, that's my kind of my one requirement, and I can usually tell, you know, and so.
Thank you, Mr. Yuska.
Okay.
We always appreciate hearing from you.
Okay. Well, I still love doing this. Thanks for letting me do it. Actually, you know, the enthusiasm still there, still having fun. So,
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Then all those in favor of approving the West High School government class travel to Washington, D.C., please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. That concludes our action items for this evening, so we'll move on to the financial information, which is item G on page 18, and I will turn it over to Michael Coughlin.
A lot less exciting than talking about our nation's capital and that opportunity, but
Oh, come on. We'll be all right.
Oh, come on.
I
Mr.
just want to
East.
hit a few of the
Waiting for it.
highlights of the end of the year, and I will say that these are unaudited, pretty close, but they're unaudited final numbers, so they may change just slightly. I want to take you to page 19, and this is the revenue and expenditures. And when you look at initially, the expenditures for this year went up over $7 million in the general fund. But our revenue went up 3.5. So, and as you look at carrying over higher balance from the year before, really we only went down 1.1 million. But that really was that bubble that I've been talking about for about 3 years of saying we're cresting and coming down a little bit. But it's hopefully a very controlled descent and still very much within the guidelines of the percentages of the board, the targets. But the biggest thing that goes along with how come that happened, just salaries went up about $4 million. And one of those reasons was that we added more days. We added more time. And we also added more positions. So it wasn't just that we paid people that much more. It was a combination of the two. We did pay them more, but there was more hours involved for their contracts, and then there was more positions added. So the rest of the funds, activity is not in this report, so there isn't any beginning and ending balance, but we're carrying about $1.2 million in activity funds. Management decreased about $150,000. The sales tax revenue went from 18 million to 13 million, but that's really overinflated the 18 million because a lot of that was the borrow for the WCC project. So as we spent that down, we're getting more to a realistic number of what's in that after the project is over. There's still a little bit of excess in there, but we're not doing anything else out of that fund except finishing that project for now, so it has seen an increase.
About what percentage of that
About
is?
2 million of that 13 is still to pay out.
Okay. Thanks.
But that's still an increase from, and if you look on the graphs and on the back pages, it's still bringing us in over 10 million, where a couple years ago it was 6. So we have built up some funds in that because we spent the borrow and just the revenue that was coming in is
there-
building up a little bit to be used for the next project.
Is there an estimate for this coming year on SAVE? Is it going to be higher? or lower?
Actually, SAVE went up 4% this year, just under 4%. And this is the last year that is not affected by the state taking that 1% bubble if it's over 2%. So now I'm starting to sound like a politician, but if it's under 2%, we keep whatever that is. If it's over 2%, the state takes back 1%.
Right.
But it's until they get to a fund balance of $30 million in a property tax relief fund. And on take this year for an example, if you had a 4% increase, you'd net out 3%, and 1% of all the districts in the state would go into that 30 million. It wouldn't take much to fill that up. So it's going to have an effect on us, but not a long-term effect. So we'll see how the economy.
And is it truly a step back provision where if you're $1 over 2%, it drops back to
It is
1%?
that the language that I've seen, yes.
So you either want it to be under 2 or over 3, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
then you're going to get,
Because with the minus of the 1, you're
right, right, you're back to 1.
The other funds stayed relatively flat. PEPL stayed within 100,000. The debt service is really the amount of money that's building up in there to pay off the QSCB bond, that we hold all the interest in an account until the principal, all of the principal is due. So that's built up over time. Nutrition is showing a negative right now, and that's one of those unaudited numbers. Because the auditors actually do some adjusting to the food service fund based on OPEB liability and IPERS liability of things that we owe to employees over the next 20 years. So there's some actuarial numbers that have to go into the accounting before that number is final. But it's not very far off. The internal fund is the print shop, and trust funds is a couple of scholarships that are given away each year. On page 21, it's just a comparison by category, revenue and expenditures, whether it's local, state, federal, and other, how it compared to the actual from the year before. I'm going to do a little more work on that as far as presenting to the Finance Committee and then to you, because these reports, if you go on 22, 23, 24, they're really a comparison between what we guessed we would do and what the actuals were. They weren't, what did we do last year to this year? But I think that's very valuable as well to see the actual change from one year to the next and why that happens. So I will do a little more work on that as we get into projecting a little more exact once we get final numbers for staff and so on in 1920. And as soon as we get that set, we'll start on 2021. Page 25 is the graphs of all of the cash balances. And this is what's in the bank as of June 30th. So you can see in the general fund over the last 3 years, it went from 32 million to 36 million, back down to just under 35. So you see a little bit of that turn in the balance, but not a drastic one. And you can see the activity on a daily basis in the graphs. And management stayed relatively flat. The sales tax fund, we talked about that. And PEPL is carrying about 2.2 million, but that's all dependent on how much of the project was done on June 30th. Because some of the projects were in process. So it's hard to say when the projects are done, how much did we have left? And I'll report that to you later in kind of a summary of the end of the year actual activity.
But from an accounting standpoint, the PEPL projects, are they, is a liability go against it when when the project is approved or when the money's actually spent?
It is when the project is billed. That's close. With SAVE and with PEPO, when we have a major project, it's
Yeah.
when the work is done and it's billed.
Okay.
It's not the whole project billed day one. So. Okay. The other thing that we look at as a district that is something that's measurable is the financial key measures on page 26. And that is our unspent balance, our annual unspent balance. How are we spending the money that we generated in that year? And then the solvency, what's our cash value basically? So in 2009, at the end of 2018, our unspent balance was 14.2% and it dropped to 12.9. So about 1.3%. The general fund is showing that of all the money we could generate in that particular year, not the carryover from the year before, we spent 100.7% of the money, which makes sense. Then your balance would go down because you're spending more than you're generating by formula. And then the solvency, the cash balance, because of the same reasons that we're spending a little more than what we brought in, went from 16.3 to 15.8. But as a rule of, and I did share that with the Finance Committee a couple of months ago, that at the end of 18, out of the larger UEN districts, we were sitting about third in financial health. So from the numbers that we had, we're in very good shape compared to our peers. And I will continue to break that down a little more as we start looking at building things into 1920, getting that a little more locked in when we have staff and so on, and do some comparisons to the previous years. If you have any questions, you can certainly, throw them at me, and I can include them in a chart or a comparison. Or I know one of the things that came up last year at this time was how do we compare to all of the districts in the state? And that will come out a little bit later, after the annual reports are done in the middle of September. So it's going to be into the October, beginning of November season before we're going to be able to really compare numbers across the state.
I apologize, Michael. I'm trying to get to the root of the sirens that are going off and make sure that I'm not endangering anybody in our audience out there. So, are there any other questions for Michael? Nope.
I'm not sure it's in the report here exactly, but how are we doing as far as, the investment we put in that Memorial Stadium? How's that coming out for us overall for last year? We've had updates in about a year now.
Okay, we're doing what?
Updates to Memorial Turf and this, so how's that?
The usage of it?
As far as cost, how much cost savings, how much additional revenues it
Oh,
brought
I
us?
haven't done anything with that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be a Marty
About,
thing.
'cause we had about a year now, so it'd be interesting to see,
Yeah, just the turf care and
Right.
we don't have to spray for weeds and, those kind of things. Yeah, no, I haven't
we had a
done
lot
that
of
yet.
justification to get there, but I haven't seen anything to follow up on.
Yeah, I would be interested in that too. The number of events, number one, which I think is quadrupled maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's something we could get from Dan.
Yeah.
Or Marty, both.
And then the absolute cost, which
Yeah.
I'm guessing is about the same, maybe a little less. for
Well,
a
we
lot
can
more
do
events.
numbers, but like Dan Huff would
Dan
give
would be
you
the one for sure.
some personal connection
Yeah.
to that rather than just the numbers.
So that'd be an interesting
We can get that.
postmortem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're about a year in, so we kind of should have a good idea of what it could be anyway from year to year. So
I do know that the concession and the gate on the first night might
Huge.
be as
Biggest
might have
we've
been
ever
as
had.
high as I've ever
was
seen that
awesome.
I've been here.
Beautiful.
It was a beautiful night.
And on those same lines, I was just wondering too if eventually, it is a little early, obviously, but just looking at numbers last year of free breakfast, free lunch, breakfast, free lunch this year, kind of comparative numbers of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it over then to Dr. Lindeman for her report so that we can move through the evening.
I will be as brief as I can. We do have a little weather coming here. It's okay right now, but it's definitely, another half hour is going to change a little bit.
Not be
so
nice.
I'll be quick. First of all, great audience tonight. This is fun to have a wonderful audience. So thank you. A
Interaction.
special thank you for coming, to make a point of coming. We appreciate that a lot. We're in our third week of school starting. That's just hard for me to believe because it seems like we just started yesterday and now we're already on the third week. And it's just, so I just wanted to make a comment. I just think there are so many amazing things going on. And I just, I'm even speaking a little bit as a mom, but I just think of all the things that, all of the messages and all the things that we're getting information about. There are so many opportunities out there. It's just hard to believe, whether it's music opportunities or sports opportunities or clubs or robotics, or there's just so many things. And so I just encourage everybody to take advantage of those. There are so many things. Some of them aren't even necessarily school things. There's just so many opportunities out there. So everything's starting to heat up in a very fun way. I also wanted to mention, we have been, I think the public and certainly the board has heard me talk a lot about the rewriting of our strategic plan. So we have had the same strategic plan for the past 5 years. It was a 5-year plan. And so with that coming to a close, we are working on our new strategic plan. And so we are planning for a release of that draft around November 1st. And so we're really excited about that. I've already told people we would be keeping the very same acronym, the PACE, which stands for People, Achievement, Community, and Environment. So we're keeping that same thing, but the goals and the strategies and the action steps underneath are certainly changing to reflect where we are at this point in time. So get ready for that. We will be putting more information out in the next couple months, at least getting started with that process. And finally, I would just draw everybody's attention to, and especially any viewers, there's just a lot going on right now with our Life Labs Experiential Service Learning Grant. We have our first group heading out, and Life Labs was started out of a grant that came from McElroy Trust. It was $1.5 million, and so we're just really doing some amazing things. It started at elementary last year, and this year it's elementary and middle, and next year it will be elementary, middle, and high school, so it'll be all K-12. And it's just opportunities for our kids to experience life around them. Think of the classroom going out into the public, so it's really taking the learning out into the life, and which is where the name is, the Life Lab, making the outside environment, our community, and beyond the learning experience. So it's just really great things going on. I know that we have Cattle Congress going on right now, and I know that we're taking all of our second graders to that. It is not just exploring, it is a very specific set of standards that the students are working on, and then they come back and they continue that learning. So great things going on, and we are just continue to be grateful for the McElroy Trust donation to us, and kids are gonna get some great experiences out of it. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Dr. Lindeman. Okay, I'm going to start down here to my left with India.
I had a quick question. So we had teacher meet past week for elementary. I just wonder how the response was. I don't have an elementary student, but I'm kind of curious, just, that first week, everything's new and then all of a sudden stop. And then just wondering how it went.
I don't know if
Any response
Dr. Mohun wants to share more. I mean, I know that I went as a parent as well. I think the attendance was good. I think it was pretty good. So I haven't seen any of the stats. Have you?
I have not. It's not one that they're required to keep stats for, so I can just say as a parent as well. And my daughter's building, it was packed.
Good.
I mean, cars parked along the streets where they're not supposed to. I mean, everywhere. So it was definitely highly attended.
I think they all keep stats. I don't know that we make them turn them in. Like fall conferences in spring, they turn
Right,
in and
they
we
have
do
to
an
turn 'em into
aggregation.
us, yep.
But I know that they do keep track of exactly who attends and who doesn't. So I think, but it was packed. So
I'm glad it was a good response.
Yeah.
You know, those who do not have children in elementary, they're always questioning like, why do you have to meet now? You know, but I think it's really important because there's so much anxiety starting new, and you know, as parents, you know, you ship your children off and you're just hoping for the best, and then you having that contact, I think is very important. So that's why I just wanted to point that out.
Great. Super. Okay, Jesse.
All right. For me, I'm gonna just thank. I'm probably missed a few names here, but Dan Huff, Worldly Tack, for everything they did for the opening game for Central. I know Tara also as well, doing filming there, and that was a great event. The signage was great, but the service in the Career Center, I was probably most impressed, you know, sitting there and then hearing somebody, oh, I didn't know this exists, or you know, people inquiring how do I get my kids in here. So that was I think really nice in there, and appreciate their work on that and make it come together. So anybody else I missed in that too. So
Sue.
I have nothing tonight.
All right, Rhonda. Nothing. Aster. All right. Lyle.
Just a little bit, as long as we're talking about foreign language or languages tonight. I apologize for missing the last board meeting, but as on my way back from a really fantastic riverboat cruise from Moscow, Russia up to St. Petersburg, along the way, one of the excursions was stopping at a school, and it was pretty Spartan in terms of facilities, but they had 3 7th graders that showed us around, showed us what they were doing, spoke English, very difficult to tell the difference that they were really Russian. About 70% in 1st or 2nd grade take English as a second language. German is the next most popular one, which is pretty much the gist of it. And then in 8th or 9th grade, these were 7th graders, but they normally take a third language, which French is the most popular. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The students, like I say, the sentence structure was actually an English sentence structure. Unlike the staff of the cruise line, which was about 70% Russian natives, they spoke very good English as well, but the sentence structure was more of a German or a Russian, where the verbs and the nouns were changed. So I thought that was really interesting, and it just, I guess, goes to show that around the world, most people speak more than one language, and
Yes, absolutely.
and we probably ought that
Great
too.
gift.
But it was very impressive. You could tell from the questions, because the 7th graders fielded questions, you know, and some of them they didn't quite understand the phraseology or words. They weren't quite that deep into it, but very impressive as to the command of the English language that those students had. So I thought that was interesting observation on foreign languages.
I'm glad you didn't stay, that you came back. So, all right, is there anything further to come before the board? Our next meeting will be here in this room on the 23rd of September. So without further ado, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night. Stay dry.
Use your umbrellas.
I had planned on running over to West for the family thing, and he just told me that it's postponed until the 16th. Van.
Josh had booster, and she got a Christian meeting at church,
Ah,
and
so
I'm going.
you were planning on going?
And I'm going to UNI to pick up the kids.